Good afternoon. Welcome to Usability Testing. I hope you are having a good week. So we are together today and tomorrow. So finally, today, we are going to be talking about usability testing. We are going to be going in some introduction to what usability testing is, and I will share with you what is in this week's material as well. We have a lab, but you will see that the lab is a lot lighter than last week or the previous week. And I have yet marked the assignment, but I will be marking the assignment pretty soon. And I look forward to going through the assignment that you've all submitted earlier in the week. So we are going to be diving in terms of usability testing, and our next assignment, our next collaboration weekly labs and assignment will be about preparing for usability testing, going through the steps, defining what we're going to be testing in a test, what's included in a test. So you are going to be swimming in usability testing and know everything inside out. So I hope you're as excited as I am. It is fun. I actually really enjoy doing usability testing. But we had some questions we needed to ask ourselves before we even begin talking about usability testing. So we needed to do some preparation work, which was the intent of our first assignment, and also for this week's lab as well. So let me just share with you the content for this week. So we are in week number 4. And before I begin, are there any questions about anything from either last week or any questions or concerns that you want to raise? That could be a good time. So we are in week 4, and this week we are going to talk about usability testing. Intro, I think we have a short video as well. So the class material and the PowerPoint is available on this week's, and then for the next until our midterm, and then when we come back from midterm, we'll be doing analysis and reporting of our usability testing. But we're going to be talking about what is usability testing. We're going to go through the step for planning our usability testing, and then right before our reading week, we actually going to be conducting the usability testing, which is a very critical piece. So preparation is important, but conducting the sessions, there are a lot of things that we should and should not do in a session that you're going to learn. And then what else do we have for this week? I have one reading. So this week is a light week when it comes to readings. And this reading I found, I believe, on Jacob Nielsen Norman group, which I'm hoping that most of you are familiar. So this talks about, I would say it's an advanced topic for usability testing, but it's really how do we manage to do user research, and usability testing is an example of a user research, which I know you're covering in a more depth with Yvonne. So usability testing is a type of user research, and this article talks about how do we fit user research in Agile. And for those of you, if you're not familiar with the term Agile or Agile methodology, Scrum methodology in Agile, he talks about how do we make sure that we integrate user research into our Agile approach and methodology. We do need to do user research. We can't be confident in our design if we haven't involved the users in some capacity. So he's giving you some tips on how can you make sure that you always have user research into everything that you do when you can, but you will see that sometimes it can be a challenge with the Agile methodology. So I thought that you would enjoy that article. Then we have our sections for our today's content. So it is a Google Drive document. And then I have also listed, there are 5 particular roles that individuals will play in the usability testing, and we are going to learn more about each role. The first one is customer. So you have a customer. So you've all selected a project to do your usability testing on, and if I think of Nintendo. So Nintendo would be your customer, and they are trying to achieve specific objectives through their usability testing. So they would be your main client, and then you will be working very closely with them. Obviously, there's a moderator. So when we say moderator, it's the person who's actually facilitating the usability testing. So if you are that user research and that UX center design research, that usability expert, you own the usability testing research and approach. So yes, you have a customer, but it's really important that you feel that this is your project. This is your project to support your client, but you're there to make recommendations, and you're there to own the research, the methodology, the timing, the timeline, working with the clients, knowing what your budget is, knowing what the timelines are, defining the priorities. And you may be alone or you may work with other people, but this will be your initiative. So it's important that you feel that you can challenge your client. It's important to feel that um, they will look for recommendations. And I mean, like any client, they will from time to time make specific recommendation. But you are in charge of the entire project, from defining, from planning to executing to conducting, and to also making sure that the analysis is properly done, making sure that everybody on the team knows. No one else will manage that research unless you work with a third party uh, agency. But even then, you should be the main contact. You should be the voice of your clients. You should be the voice of your company. If you work for, let's say, a user research, or if you work for a company and you've decided to work with a third party user research, you should still be the one who owns that initiative. And and then doing the reporting, and also making sure that the report is actually readable, making sure that the report makes sense to the client. So you, as the user research, you're going to be writing the report, you're going to be doing analysis, but you should feel that you are accountable for the quality of the final report, and all pieces, really, I would say all deliverables you're going to learn in this project are yours. So of course you're going to be supported, but you're going to have people helping you. But you should feel that this is your product, and not wait for the client to actually tell you what to do. They don't know. They've never done usability testing, right? So this is what you're learning, this method. And the other participants that you will see are roles. It's obviously the participants. So there are a lot of hints, and you will learn about participant and what to look for in the participant, and what to do with the participant in the session. You will give them specific things to do with your product. And we're going to work on what should be those tasks, what should be the user scenarios, how do we define what are we testing in a test. So the intent of the user heuristic evaluation for your product that you've selected as team for as a first assignment is to do just that, to help us guide us in terms of what are we testing specifically for the project that you've selected, and perhaps where do we think that we need to focus, because and that will be based on what you will have seen through the heuristic evaluation, going through the principles, right? Specific user goal, specific challenges you will find that I'm hoping are severe enough that we need to do testing so that we can validate our finding. The note taker. So as you facilitate the session, you will have people that will be taking notes, and often they are in behind a glass window. Or if you do remote, in which you're going to be doing your remote usability testing using Zoom, using Teams, using any tools that you want. Someone's going to be taking notes, and we're going to be spending time on how do we take notes and what kind of notes do we take. And then you're going to have observers. So the observer is another role that is very critical. Anybody has an idea of who would be the observer in this case? So who would be watching the session and be silent? The observer silence, they just watch. Who do you think we would be inviting to usability testing session? Yes, definitely the client, Marissa. Yes, the stakeholder. Who else do you think you could be inviting? Yes, yes, Hannah, other team members, your product managers, your developers. So think of usability testing is actually an opportunity to do a few things: to help your client, which is your stakeholder, to help your client to really understand what do we need to do about our site, what is broken with our product. So the website, it could be a mobile app, it could be a kiosk, it could be many things. Also, the other benefit of usability testing is to educate people that are actually building those products. So you may be the UX designer, you may be the designer, or you may actually not be at all the designer. In your career, you may just be doing research. So what about inviting the designer? What about inviting the product managers? And I will say it's using this opportunity to have them see in action people using the product. And it's a very, really major eye-opening when they actually sit there and they start listening and watching people using the product. um, a lot of them uh, come to realization that sometimes they've made good choices, sometimes they've made bad choices. So it's forcing or an opportunity for them to get outside of their wall and see people in action. And it's, you will see the power of usability testing is we ask people to do. We don't care about what they've done. We don't care about what they've said. We don't care about what they're actually telling us. We want them to do. So, and I will say, this is good. You're going to hear this over and over. It's about observing. It's about having the participant do. For example, if create an account on Nintendo or even your site is a critical piece and a critical component that you feel that you've seen issues as you were doing your heuristic, you will want to see them do an account creation. And then you will be making notes of problems that you're finding with that process. Making a purchase online, looking for return. How do I return an item? Looking for how do I contact Nintendo, or how do I contact Netflix, or how do I contact any of the businesses that you selected. Small details sometimes are, and big details and big issues will be revealed, and the product managers are probably not even aware of. So it's very, very powerful. And I will tell you, often they really enjoy seeing people in action using their product because they're so close to it and they have no ideas that people are having all of these challenges. And I will tell you, often it's really hard for them to stay quiet behind the mirror. Actually, some of them want to go into the room and they want to show the participant what to do and how to do, which obviously would be a wrong thing to do, because what the participant is telling us is really what other people are probably having in terms of challenges in real life, right? So again, we're testing. We are not testing the users. So this is called usability testing. Some of us sometimes will say user testing, but be careful in the use of words. We're not doing user testing. We are doing usability testing. So we're testing the usability of our product. And this is going to be something very important to also remind the participants that we're not testing them, so that they feel very comfortable and they feel safe as well. So the observer play are important. You're going to see clients, you're going to see opportunity to invite the people that are developing those products. Now, what this means as well is, if you are the user research and you're a designer and you already see that some people are a bit too disconnected from the user and from the user of the product, then you start making a list of who do you think you should be inviting to those sessions. So use that as an opportunity to educate them about user and how user use product. So we're going to talk in a lot more details about the roles, but you will see some information in today's deck. And then we have a lab for this week. And the lab, I have pushed the lab to a later date than normally. So, and I've put an announcement. Some students have asked, could we, Professor, have a bit more time for our next lab? So I have put a due date for this lab on October 6th at midnight. So that is next Wednesday. The lab for this week is really simple. And I will say, let's just cover the item for the lab. So what I want you from the lab is, now that you've completed your heuristic evaluation of the product that you've selected. And speaking of product that you've selected, I would appreciate if you could add the name of the company to the same Excel sheet that Yvonne has asked you to put all of your names and your top choices. I've added a column that says Yves' choice for Yves' assignment. So that is assignment 5678 or 567. And then I'd like for you to put the name of the company, so 567. I like for you to put the name of the company that you selected so that I know who's doing what and who's on which team. I'm getting a sense of who, but it would be just nice for me to be able to say the names and not have to guess. The link to the Google document. So has Yvonne shared with you the Excel document? It's the same link that Yvonne has created where you were able to put your top choices. Perhaps I don't want to share it then, but I just assumed that she had shared that document as well. Okay, so great. So yes, Kevin, so that is the same place. Oh, you forgot to save it? Okay, let me just find this document and then I will paste it in the chat so you're all gonna have it. Okay, so what I just pasted the document to the Google document. My apology for the long paste that I have done before. So it was obviously not intended to you, but it happens. Um, the lab for this week is now that you've done the heuristic evaluation for your product, I'd like for you to work in your team. So I don't think you need to have a very long meeting. You will have a chance, you will have an opportunity to talk more about the specific task and the user scenario and the areas that we want to be focusing on our usability testing when we actually do our preparation for user test and user testing and the task. But I do want you to start thinking about the following as a team. So, what did you learn about the product? What surprised you the most as you were doing the assignment number 5? So, we often think that the big brands that we've selected have good products, good experiences, but I'm hoping that you found some pretty severe challenges and that with the product. So I'd like for you to think about what really, when you step back and you look at the heuristic evaluation, what is really standing up from what you've seen and what you found. The second thing I'd like for you to think of a brief explanation of the main areas or customer stages or customer goals that you would like to be focusing on for your client. So again, you did a heuristic evaluation and you know that the specific brand has specific expectation in terms of business goals and what they want the customer to be able to do. That was the first set of questions you needed to think about for your heuristic evaluation. Then I want you to think about, are there specific areas that you think that you should be focusing on based on what you found in the heuristic evaluation? The other elements or questions that I would like for you to think about is who would be some of the participants? And then what do I mean by participants is what type of targets or what would be your target audience? So what would be your customers? So new customer or existing customer, you may want to think about, are we interested in people that are that have made a purchase, that don't or have no purchases? And we know that the customer goals will vary, right? Depending on where they are and where they are in their journey. So I want you to start thinking about those. And then I want you to start thinking about what is the target profile for the participants? So if there are, and then think about behavior and motivation. So buying, looking to contact, looking to return an item, looking for some specific help, and perhaps their motivation would be knowing that first of all, and this is a recommendation that I would make in terms of your participant that you will recruit. If you were to really recruit real people that are, let's say, Nintendo customer, you would want to bring people that are positive about Nintendo. And here's why. If you bring people that often that are negative about the brand, they're going to use that as an opportunity to vent, and they'll be doing a lot of talking, and you're not going to be able to do observation. So that will be my first thing. But think about behavior, think about motivation. What motivates them to use the product or come to the product, and then actions that you want them, or user goals that you think that they should be focusing. So the fact that someone is 45 or 40 may not make a big difference in the participants, or it could, but you want to think about people that either use the product often or have been customer for a long time, people that are thinking of becoming customer, or people that are looking for maybe to renew a contract, and maybe perhaps they're about to expire. So these things will make more of a difference in your choice and what you will see than perhaps maybe even the gender, maybe even the age, maybe even the income. Okay. Yes, you will be doing usability testing with, but we are going to go through more details about what will be the participant. But I want you to start thinking about the profile of what the participant will be. And if I can use the term that Yvonne has used, is what would be your screener? So for this, for our first testing that we're going to do, we're going to do it among ourselves. But I still want you to think about, if you were to recruit people that were outside of our class for our first usability testing that we will do, okay? I still want this class to think about, or assume that you would be recruiting people, real people, but we will do real people recruiting, or people are as close as possible to who you would want to be recruiting. We will do that for our main project, for our final assignment. But consider assignment number 6 and number 7 as practice. So there will be more like practice assignment, and the usability testing for a big real project, let's say Netflix or Loblaws, will be as if we were to do it with people that are real, and they will be people outside of this class. But assignment 5 and 6, or for the non-big project, for the next assignments or non-big project, will be done within our class. So you will facilitate a session with people in this class. So everybody's going to play either the role of an observer, note taker, or either the role of a moderator, and then the role of participant. So you're going to be playing moderator, participant, observer as well in assignment 6 and 7. So let me just, I really don't want to misquote because they're just telling me 6, 5, 6, and yeah, assignment number 6 has multiple pieces, and you will play at least 3 roles in it. So, but for today, don't get confused. But what I want for the lab is I want you to think about what you found, areas of focus, who would be the participants if you were to recruit external participants, and then I want you to think about user goals or user tasks that you will be doing. And I will say this bullet is probably similar to the second bullet. So again, the power of usability testing is that you will give them very specific tasks that should be matching user goals that you will want to bring them, or you will want them to actually try to accomplish online. So this will be the lab for this week. And this will give me an opportunity to know that you've been thinking about what potentially you should be focusing your research on. And this will give me an opportunity to give you some hints on what to use and what not to use when we are actually going to tell the participants to do X, for example. Here's an example. One of the tasks that you're probably going to give participants, Kevin, let's say Kevin is with Nintendo. He may want to attract new customer of Nintendo. So perhaps he wants someone to become a customer. He would obviously not tell the customer, or as a task, go and browse or find or log in or browse or sign up. Or you want to avoid from being too close to what they will see on the web because you're leading them, right? So you always have to think about a very specific high-level user goal. You want to learn more about Nintendo, you want to become a customer, you want to consider to become a customer, but you don't want to say browse, search, filter, click on, look like, okay? Because now when you do this, you're telling them, part of the answer, and you don't want to do that. You want them to go as natural as possible. So please do this, and this is due from Wednesday, and it will help you as a team to start thinking about where are we going to be focusing on, and I'll be able to provide feedback to each teams using your clients. So this is going to be very critical for a number 6 assignment, and that assignment is done in multiple pieces. And for the next subsequent weeks, we actually going to be working on those sub pieces for assignment number 6. Okay. So assignment number 6 is really will take us to a final usability testing with a report, analysis and report that we're going to repeat in our final project at the end, which is assignment number 7 for your in combination with Yvonne's project. So now we're going to move on to our today's class, and let me just share my slides. Before I do this, are there any questions about this week's or the content or the lab for this week? So a Word PDF document through Blackboard will be sufficient. And please, I don't expect you to spend hours and hours on this lab, but we're just going to help you and make it a lot easier for next week and the subsequent weeks. Okay, so we are in week 4, and so we just went over the lab for this week, and yes, the lab is a group. So the lab is a group lab because this is something you're going to do in a group. Absolutely, yes. So there will be individual pieces as we continue for assignment number 6, but everything is done in a group for the lab, definitely for this week. So quickly, we're going to talk about what is usability testing, what makes something usable as well. So we talk about usability, but I want to have a quick reminder about what is usable when we say usable, and I'm hoping that some of you know what that definition is. Why do we do usability? What do we test? Where and when? There is this notion of formal and informal evaluation, usability. So the usability that we are going to do is considered it's a formal usability testing because we're actually doing it. We will be doing it for real. And of course, we're doing for class. But when you go as far as doing usability testing with participants that are outside or participants that will be using your product, and if you're doing it through a mirror, when we mirror into a lab, it's obviously a formal usability testing at that point. And we are going to be doing our usability. All of our usability testing is moderated. So there is a moderator who's facilitating the usability testing. So the core focus for this class is moderated usability testing, but you could also have non-moderated usability testing, which almost looks like a survey and a questionnaire that participants go and do on their own using a software or online software. And there is software that exists for that, but there's no moderation. There's no moderator. And I will tell you, I find it's a major pitfall. The power of usability testing, again, is the moderation, is being there to be able to ask questions that we need or be able to ask clarity, get more clarity on certain elements without leading and guiding. But otherwise, I could just have a survey, right, and ask people to do. So the moderation, to my opinion, when it comes to usability testing and being there as a moderator is really critical. And I think that is what differentiates usability testing from anything else, from online surveying to a survey, because you're there as a moderator. So you can really, really get into people's head too and ask questions at the end, preferably. So, what we're going through for this semester is formal usability testing and moderated and remote as well. So you're going to hear remote. You're not going to do usability testing with the participant in your house or in a research lab or in a lab. It's all going to be done by remote, mostly because of COVID. But I've done in-person usability testing with participant in the same room as me, moderating, and the client behind a mirror as well. So we're going to talk about, again, what is usability, when to conduct usability testing, what to test, and getting buy-in from usability testing. So we are going to do, we are going to be going to a lab. We're in the process of trying to schedule labs for eye tracking. So not for usability testing lab. So we're not going to do in-person for usability testing lab, but we will do eye tracking. So we're hoping to be able to do in-person for eye tracking. So Tanisha, here's my my little spiel on being in person or not being in person, or being in a lab or not being in a lab for usability testing. I will tell you, being in a lab does not make usability testing better. What makes the biggest difference in usability testing is the moderator and whoever is preparing for the usability testing. So you don't need to have a fancy lab. You don't need to have a one-way mirror. You don't need to have all this fancy and technology. It doesn't matter if you don't do good preparation, if you don't focus on where you should be focusing for the business, if you don't do a good job at moderating, if you don't do a good job at taking notes and doing good analysis and doing good report, it doesn't matter how you have the lab that you have, the technology that you've used. To me, they're just bells and whistles. So I much rather have good preparation and have a solid understanding of what we're actually measuring in our usability testing, being able to read and understand what is happening with the participants, being clear on the analysis and what has happened, and also think beyond what the participant has said, which you will all see as we do it together, is a lot more powerful than having nice technology. I have done a lot of usability testing in a simple room with a desktop, with a computer, and the participants sitting next to me, no mirror, no stakeholder, and even have someone take notes in the same room as well. The power is what you will find and what you will do and how you will report on the finding. And I also doing usability testing labs for a business, they're very expensive. The lab facilities are very expensive. If you're renting space, right? If you're downtown Toronto, it will be very super expensive. And I will tell you, the lab facility is often what will cost what will drive your cost very high. In terms of usability testing, you can think of $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 per test. And a test usually is 8 to 10 participants, depending on the research. If you do work with a research firm, and if you want them to do a super advanced report, the cost will go high. So you want to minimize costs, and one way to minimize costs is to not do a lab. You will get a lot of good results with moderation, remote moderation, um, and you will keep costs very low. And your intention be to get in front of users. So your goal should not to be in the lab. Your goal should be in front of a user. And if you see that your customer is finding that it's too expensive, then I will say, offer to do remote, moderated remote. Um, and then there are ways that your clients can actually come and listen to, right? They can all come to a team meetings, they can all come to a Zoom meeting, and they can just all listen. And you would tell the participants, we have people that are in a chat with us, but they're just observer, and everybody can do it from the comfort of their home. So that is, I will say that would be my preference. So let's go in. So what is usability? So we're going to talk a little bit about usability and user experience. So obviously the look and feel and the usability. So let's go a little bit more about what is usable and what is usability. So before I do this, what is usable? What is usability? How do you define something being usable? So you can use the chat, you can come live if you want on voice. What do we mean by usability or something being usable? Keywords, what do you think of when you think of usability, when something is easy to use or usable? And this is very important when you actually try to define what are we going to be measuring, right? If we're measuring usability, how do we define usability, right? So it's not just about being able to do things. Can someone use a product efficiently, not a steep learning curve? Can they? Absolutely, Hannah. So efficiency of use, learnability of the software, able to use, able to accomplish a product or service that is functional and ergonomic. So yes, functional, ergonomics and usability, I would say, William, are one of the same. So, but it's really important for you as user experience expert to be able to define usability. Often people will tell you this thing is not usable or it's not easy friendly. And then you'll say, okay, great. So tell me a little bit more about it. And you will have stakeholder or your clients will tell you, they'll say, this thing is not usable or it's hard to use. And then you can say, great, define hard to use. What do you mean? You want them to speak, right? But it really comes to, uh, are users able to do what they want to do? Can they quickly learn the system? Can they remember the system? Is it actually pleasing to use? Is it efficient as well? So that is how we truly define usability. So usability, and I share with you, it's learnability. So can I learn quickly? Can I efficiently use? Can I remember as well the system? So we know people will come and go. They will come and go. They will come and go, right? So when you were doing the heuristic evaluation and you were noticing that some sites, or even the site that I gave you for some of our labs, they were not designed very well for interruption. So for people that would pause, come back later, or try to do things that were very specific, they would actually lose a lot of efficiency. And we've seen multiple examples, and Metro was one of them too. So errors, preventing errors, guiding someone when they make errors, all of these, and then satisfaction. So satisfaction is a component of usability, but it's not the only component, right? I could be not at all satisfied with a system, but if I'm able to learn the system, if I can remember the system, if I can do my task, relatively easily and efficiently, and the system is helping me to have no errors, then I think that's as important, right? So this is how you can define usability evaluation. We've talked about usability evaluation. But really, usability is the extent to which the product can be used by a specified set of users to achieve their goal with effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction. So at least now you have a definition of a definition to help you define what really usable is. And if you notice, one key important piece is being able to accomplish the goal. So keep in mind, and you may have to do some education to your customer when someone comes to you and say, this is actually very easy to use. Now, I think this is probably the biggest concern is when someone will come to you and they will say, William, I really like Grocery Gateway because I think it's a very easy to use site. And then you'll go and you'll notice it's actually not that easy to use. There are a lot of issues. So now you have a bit of a better definition. But if you go back to the user and the user goals, and like you did with heuristic and the heuristic evaluation and the different principle, you'll be better equipped to be able to define if a site is good or bad or not at all easy to use. So if you notice, usability testing is also very much about some of the heuristic principle that you have learned. So things are converging, right? The heuristic and the use, what something is easy and not easy to use. And when we look at the heuristic in the context of heuristic in light of user goals and being able to do your goal, everything is converging into making something good, a positive, or a bad experience. The pleasing. The pleasability is something pleasant. You will see that in a lot of usability testing, typically, you will notice when it's pretty bad and very broken that your success rate for a task. So you're going to give someone a task to, let's say, make a purchase online. You may actually find that only 50% of people are successful. 50, 50. Let's say even 75%, right? That's pretty low. 75% is not a good number. You should always aim for at least 90%. You want people in general to be able to do their task. And let's say that you do usability testing and you notice that you have a success rate of 60% or 75%, and we say it's low. We agree it's low. So that means there were some issues. Some usability testing will include a survey at the end that will measure, are people happy? Do they, like, you will measure usability and you will ask them, how satisfied are you with the site? You will often see that they will tell you that they were very satisfied. So which tells us that you cannot only rely on what people will tell you, because you just saw in the testing that 75% of the time they're not able to do their goals. But they will tell you they were happy and satisfied because a few things. They may think that this is what we want to hear. They may think they actually did well and the set was pretty well. But in the end, though, they would have failed if they would have been on their own. But they either they know and they're denying, or they did not think it was an issue. But meanwhile, they may have not been able to accomplish it on their own. So this is also why we do usability testing. We're not asking them if it's easy to use. We're not asking them if it's good to use, if it's a good experience, or if it's a pleasing experience or not. We're actually validating through observation and through real things whether or not it's easy to use. So you can still have a survey, but you're validating with them as they do where they're having challenges and obstacles. So we have a little video, quickly, a little video from Jacob Nelson's. It's a quick, short watch, and I'm just going to paste it here. And I will have to share the screen. Hold on. And then I will paste the link in case you want to listen to that little video from your computer, which sometimes can be easier. You're welcome to as well. And let me share the screen. It's short. So we're going to hear from Jacob Nelson. And if you haven't subscribed to Jacob Nelson's, you should. He's a well-known personality when it comes to usability testing. And then this is 3 minutes, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about the video.
I recommend that all design projects do user testing because you are not the user. And so you know too much about technology in general, and for sure you know too much about your own project. And you simply cannot wipe your brain and pretend that you don't know the things that you do know. So you can never have that experience of just coming for the very first time to a website and how does that feel when you haven't used it before. You've got to get hold of real users and see what they do to get a true assessment of whether this design is easy to use, solve people's needs. You cannot just assess that yourself. Secondly, user testing is really cheap. I mean, there's certainly a lot of other UX research that I would like to recommend people do. But if you're like kind of tight squeezed in the budget, or if you have a short time schedule,
So I saw the comment about the echoing. So what I suggest is I've pasted the link to the video from, so what you can do is, okay, so maybe, but I think if I put on mute, then it's not going to work, right? So perhaps the best option is that you each click on the link that I put on the chat and you listen to the video, and then you tell me when you're done, and then we can talk about the video. So I think there was something wrong with the chat in the video. I've repasted the video in the chat window. So please click on the video from the chat.
User testing can be done in just a few days, with 5 users, and so it's really cheap, so cheap that there's like no excuse for not doing it. And third, user testing is very convincing. When people in your design team sit and watch their customers like struggle with the design, that motivates them to go back and make the required changes, as opposed to you just saying, well, I
Great. I presume you all had a chance to listen to the video at this point. Awesome. So let's talk about a few points that Jacob Nielsen has mentioned in the video. Anything in particular that has jumped at you when it comes to usability testing that he's has shared? Anybody wants to share with us what you have noted or noticed? Yes, Maria.
Yes, I was thinking about the fact that doing the exercise, the part that you had to write about an experienced user, it was really difficult for me because the website that we did, I didn't knew about it. So I can relate to the first part that says that uh, we as users are different from the user that is using sorry, is using constantly the website. Like it's a different perspective. So
Yes,
just related to
absolutely.
that.
Yes, absolutely, Maria. So we are not the user, and I don't know if he's used those terms as well. We only have one opportunity for first impression, right? From the moment that you've seen a site, you're done. You know, you already know more than people that have not been to your site. So yes, we are not the user. We know so many things, and very, very true. And this is why we do usability testing. Is that we need to see people using our site um, as people that are similar to the people that are coming to our site today, or potentially people that have never been to our site, or people that have never bought a product, but we know they're buying the products from our competition. So we need people, those people, if we believe that those are the people that we actually want to attract as customer or prospect, uh, they will be the ones that will show us where they're having challenges. And it's not just about doing, but it's also maybe about understanding our product, or knowing what the products, or even knowing about what the site is all about too. You're going to get that type of kind of insight as well. Yes. Anyone else? Yes, I'm reading Michael. Seeing the user struggle is much more convincing than hearing about an issue. Was a good point. Sometimes people may not agree on potential, but seeing it happens. Exactly. It doesn't matter what or we think. It doesn't matter what our colleagues think. It doesn't matter what the product manager thinks, right? When it comes to usage, the users will tell us. The data will tell us, the user will tell us, but they're not even telling us. We are seeing, and that's going to be, I'm going to repeat this very, very often. We don't want them to tell us. We want to see where they're having challenges, but we are going to tell them to think loud. And I've shared with you a video very early on. The think loud is very important because this is the only way for us to know what they're thinking when they're trying to do, but it's always them trying to do something. And we don't ask them, tell me what you would do. It's do, right? Do, buy, make a purchase, buy a product, return an item. So it's matching a user goal. So for what it is intended. And Jacob has said about representative people as well. So when you see this, when you see what happens in the session, nobody can argue. But I will tell you, people, internal people, and product managers and developer will try to put the blame on the users. Some people are very attached to their products. So he warned us about something when it comes to us as designer. Anybody remembers? It was towards the end. What did he tell us as designer or as individual that we may feel or might happen in a session, or the developers do? Anybody who's designing those products, what do you think some of them might happen to some of them? Observers, client, or us? Yes, and I will tell you, the users will be critical. They will be critical of your work, but they don't critique you. They're not going to critique Hannah. They're not going to critique Michael. Uh, and they don't know who designed it. They don't care. But they do know that they're coming to, to look at IKEA. So if you say we have people from IKEA behind the glass, some of them may be shy about it, but you will see they will forget. They will become very, very vocal. And a good moderator will put them we'll make them comfortable, and we'll make sure that they feel comfortable of thinking loud and expressing the things where they're having challenges and not be shy about it. And that will be part of how do you open up your session with them? How do you make them comfortable? Absolutely. We have to have no expectations in what we will see in the usability testing, but you will see that that's really difficult for some people. And you, as being in charge of the usability testing, this is your project, right? This is your initiative. You're going to need to learn to moderate and manage your client and manage your the people that are coming to visit your site as well. Visit the sessions and the ones that will be listening as your stakeholder or as your colleagues. You will need to manage them. I will tell you, some of them, like I've heard people like using their like making noise on the table and get upset, and sometimes this resonates in the rooms, which can be a bit awkward with the participants, but people will become very emotional. Because I will tell you, most people that are coming to observe, they probably think that it's a very good site and there are no issues. So you will always find severe problems, medium problems, and low impact problems with any usability testing that you will do. If you don't find anything, you haven't done it right. There are always issues with all sites, with all products that we do. So if you were to tell me that at the end of your sessions, at the end for the assignment number 6, if you were to tell me that IKEA had no issue with their website, I will know that you haven't done your work. There are always big issues, regardless how big your company is. IKEA, Air Canada, WestJet, everybody has big challenges with their site. Yes, Tanisha. I saw your hand
Uh,
was.
yes. Speaking of issues with IKEA, we actually had a very interesting experience. Is it a good time to share?
With who you had an interesting experience?
With IKEA when we were doing our
Oh,
logistics.
okay. What happened? Tell me.
So we wanted to check the tracking feature which is on the website, and
Yeah.
turns out IKEA is very bad at that point. So we decided to do a sample order, and we were going to cancel it after a while. But
Yeah.
we didn't know that we are supposed to cancel it within 30 minutes. It didn't say that anywhere. So now the order is on its way, and the tracking is not
What
good.
did you order? What did you end up ordering?
We ended up ordering a drying rack, so that's okay. But yeah,
Oh no. You see, they don't do a good job at error prevention, right?
yeah. So that,
Oh,
that
I'm
that
sorry
was
to hear.
really, yeah. But now
That's
we found a problem with the website.
yes. There are every site. So this is why you will be asked this all the time. When people will know that you're in charge, you're responsible for user experience design and usability experience design and design, they will ask you, they will say, Tanisha, which site is the best when it comes to retail? They will say, which site is the best? My answer to me is there isn't one site that has it all. There isn't one site that is perfect, but there are some sites that you can think, and that would be up to you, that you think that has good functionality and good feature and do a good job when it comes to good UX for, and then that we would define UX, that we would have been defining it. But there isn't one site that has it all. All sites have good, but also there isn't this thing of a site that will get it all, because a site will be as good as it's supporting the business too. It's good as it's supporting the users, and the users that are important to IKEA, and the users that are important to IKEA may not be at all the same users that are important to another company like IKEA. The same thing. The users that are important to Metro may not be the same users that Voila, Grocery Gateway care about. So it's all contextual. Yes, there are patterns of bad and good experiences, but you have to look at it in the lens of the business. And not too many businesses are able to do this. They think that a website is a website, and it's they're either all good or all bad, and there's nothing in between, which is not the case. But yes, I'm sorry that you had that experience. But You will find good and bad website. So if we carry on with our usability deck for today, and it's already 2:25, time flies, but I look forward to going through your heuristic evaluation. So the very key keywords here with usability testing is it's a planned activity. So we need to know why we're doing the testing. Your client needs to look that you know what you're doing. The client needs to feel confident that you know what you're doing, that you've done this, you have experience, because he will judge your ability, and then if he sees that you're doing good, he expects that he'll have a good report, right? He will be paying attention to you. He will be paying attention to how you do moderation. He will be paying attention on on the report, the findings that you will do. So he's judging you from the beginning to the end. But it's a planned activity. You will plan it with them, but it's up to you to guide them, and it's up to you to get what you need in the usability sessions as well through the research. So you need to feel that it's okay. You will be entitled to say, Mr. Client, I don't suggest that we do this. Because what you will find is they will often be very prescriptive with you. They will say, Tanisha, I want you to tell the client to go and browse my product. But you don't want to do that because you're guiding someone. Instead, you want to say, discover what IKEA has to offer, right? If that's one of the important goals that you've defined, but you want to speak in terms of goals, but they were trying to tell you to tell the user what to do. Okay, so this will happen, but it's your project. You need to plan. So for the next few weeks, we're going to be planning it. It's about observing. So I will say this, it's about observing. You're going to do a lot more observing than talking. And then it's observing as they try to do tasks or critical goals that are critical to the business. So, and never lose sight of, this is why I asked you in your lab for this week, think about business goals that have to do with someone to get them to buy something from you, and then you want user goals that when someone has something bought, what is it that they want to do? Why would they come to your site? For example, canceling an order. I want to cancel an order. I want to return an item. I want to contact IKEA. I want to change my delivery dates. I want to do all these things, right? Don't lose these other user goals, because if they're not supported well, the user will be upset. If they have to call, it costs money. So pre-purchase, post-purchase. And as I said, it can be moderated or unmoderated, but the power of usability testing, I've said that earlier, is it moderated or is it unmoderated? That's a question. So should we favor moderated usability testing versus unmoderated testing? Moderated, absolutely, because we're there. We can ask, we can see, we can feel, and otherwise it's just a survey. You may as well just do a survey. And I've said about surveys, surveys are no good for usability testing, because what happens in real sessions when people are trying to do things is very different than what they think has actually happened. And they will often say that your site was a really good site because they think that's what we want to hear. But meanwhile, they're not able to accomplish the things that we've asked them to accomplish. So I put a few links to most of these, some of the slides. So I've taken this from Jacob Nielsen. So the core elements of usability testing. So we've already said there is a facilitator. That's going to be you. You're all going to play the role of a facilitator. I'm actually going to be a participant, and I will be observing you as a facilitator as well. Task. So we're giving users the task, specific task, very important, and the participant as well. So everybody plays a very big role. What triggers usability testing? So Yvonne may have talked about why would we even do usability testing, and I think it's important to understand why we would do usability testing. So perhaps you have a piece of data that is telling you that suddenly for over a period of time, your online conversions is not as good. You see that it's going down. So you're seeing that fewer and fewer customers are actually making purchases online. You're seeing that the same number of visitors are coming to IKEA's website, but for some reason, something has happened. Maybe there was a new design, unless fewer people are actually buying, and you've seen that it's trending down, and it's, let's say it's been happening for a month or two. So, and then you've done investigation, you've looked at every possible analysis that you could within your Google Analytics and your site, and you still don't know what is going on. So you think, you know what, we're going to do usability testing to get more insights. Customer feedback. You should all have at least a survey or one place where customer can leave you feedback. They will say, we're having issues, we're having issues, we're having issues with, let's say, buying with IKEA. And maybe you're seeing too that there's a drop in people's number of people that are actually buying. Maybe the business wants to rethink and refresh and rethink and do a redesign of their site. And then you say, you know what, yes, maybe a usability testing would actually make sense. That could be one of the reasons why you would do this. You would do usability testing, and maybe you've done a heuristic evaluation, like you did. You're noticing big issues, and you actually want to do a validation with real users. So at this point, you're kind of doing almost a triangulation, right? So you may have done a heuristic evaluation, then you want to do a usability research, and maybe there's going to be something else that you will do as well. Maybe you will do some A/B testing down the road too. So it doesn't mean that you should only do usability testing with nothing else, but often it has to begin from somewhere. And then these are examples of why you would actually even consider or think of doing usability testing. Again, I'm going through, this is an overview. We're going to go in a lot more depth. You can think of usability testing as 7 steps. The first one is planning and recruiting. So planning the test. So this is what we're starting now. We're starting planning our tests. So I'm your client. So I'm going to be your client for IKEA for each of your projects. And I will say, why are we doing this test? Or where do you think we should be focusing? So the lab is doing this. The lab is helping with planning the test. When we know what we're testing, then we get a sense of who will be the participants, right? So if you're IKEA, you're probably going to bring people that are IKEA customer, and people that maybe have purchased IKEA and do buy IKEA products on a regular basis. So that would be one set of customer. Another set of customer, maybe you want to bring people that have never bought from IKEA, but they're in market. They may be looking for new pieces of furniture, and they've actually have IKEA as one of a potential place that they would buy, but maybe they've never bought. So that could be another example of participants that is related to behavior or motivation, right? They're in market, they're motivated for furniture, but maybe they have no IKEA. So no familiarity, past customer, not the existing customer. And maybe male and female, maybe you see that IKEA has more female than male. So maybe in your participants, you would bring maybe more male than female or vice versa as well. But really think more about what really makes a difference when someone buys, for someone buying, and focus more on behavior, motivation behavior, than demographic, unless a specific demographic makes a difference. So if you're sports sites, I don't know, and I will look at your list of sites that you've decided, but Nintendo, we're talking about gamers, right? So you definitely want to bring people that have play games. But maybe they don't play Nintendo, maybe they play other type of games as well. So that is the thinking that I want you to start thinking about the participants, and always ask yourself, will this criteria about my participant make or not make a difference in me observing them? What they're wearing is not going to make a difference, but their motivation will make a difference. And then maybe the income is not going to make a difference as well. It may make a difference for who you're going to be advertising, but when you observe someone who's making, let's say, $75,000 a year, or someone who's making $150,000 a year, maybe you will see no differences from a behavior and observation point of view. So I want you to think that. Then we're going to prepare material. So this is going to be, again, all part of our assignment number 6, but we're going to break that down. We're going to prepare the material. The material is your consent form, your test script or test scenarios. It will include your moderator script, and maybe you're going to have a survey at the end. You can still have a survey at the end as a triangulation, but be prepared, you're going to see disconnect between your survey and what you see in sessions. Then setting up the environment. So our environment will be easy. It's going to be Zoom. We're going to do Blackboard. So we're going to do our sessions in week 7. I think we're going to conduct our usability testing session among ourselves as a class. Each teams will do testing, and then we all going to shift rooms. It's fun. We're going to set that, and then we're going to be recording. So that's the environment. Conduct the tests. So conducting the test, doing the moderation. We'll share some tips on what to do, not to do, how long this should last. And then do we pay the participants? Obviously, we're not going to pay participants, but if you were to do this real life, you will have to pay someone to come to do the test. Analysis of the data. So that, I think, analysis of the data is after we come back from our break in October. How you're going to interpret, how you're going to read the data is really, really important too. It doesn't matter the technology and the technology you've used. At the end of the day, it's human. It's you who's going to be doing your data analysis. And I will tell you, at that point, you're going to feel very overwhelmed with all the data that you will have and all the data you will see. And if you don't, you haven't taken enough note, or you haven't done a good job at doing your facilitation. You should really have a sense of being overwhelmed with all the data that you will have. And then we're going to report on the results. It's very important to have a good way of packaging what we find so that your client can actually make sense of it. And then your client can have a good sense of what were the issues, what were the issues, and what is really broken that I need to fix now. And then what can wait after. And then if you remember, when we think of usability testing, we don't have to think of solutions. So we don't have to solutions, but sometimes obvious solution exists. So you may actually put a solution as a recommendation on how they can fix something. But the intent is not to come up with solutions to all the problems. It's to find issues, find problems, so that then you can go in design and you can go in solutioning. But the report will say, we found the following issues. We may or we may not know what the solution is, but our goal is to really report on challenges and also report on what is good that you will find that we shouldn't touch if we were to think redesign, because we don't want to lose good functionality either. But we're in this class, we want to focus on what we think some of the challenges are, and because that's really what we want to know, and that's really what we want to know and tell our client. But for things that are good, we are actually going to make notes, but we are going to assume if something is not listed, it's either not an issue or it's good as well. But we'll talk about what kind of notes do we take. So these are the steps in this between now and the end of the semester. This is what we are going to do and go through as teams when it comes to usability testing as well. Now, these steps are similar to any research, right? This is a research. So you're doing this with Yvonne for interview. You're doing this for, if you were to do a focus group, you would do something very similar. These are steps to a research, and planning, having participants, preparing material, conducting the research, and doing analysis, and the same thing with card sorting. So it's not unique to usability testing, but where there are uniqueness, then we're going to point them out as well. And don't worry, all steps, we're going to go through all the steps. Why do we do usability testing? So as we've said, we want to uncover problems. We want to validate some of the problems that we think that we found, but you're also going to find that there will be new issues that we haven't thought of, that we haven't seen when we've done the heuristic evaluation as well. And you may actually find as well that some of the challenges that we thought in the heuristic may actually not be as bad, or they may at all not be something that will come up in the usability testing as well. Ultimately, we're doing usability testing or user research so that we can gain insight from the research from users. It's going to help you to do better design. You want to increase sales. You want to get more people to be able to buy your product. You want to keep your customer, and a good experience will keep them too. And you want to reduce costs so that if they can do them themselves, they don't have to call you, they don't need support. So you save money to your business. That's important. When do we do usability testing? As early as possible. So with Yvonne, you've learned that we do usability testing perhaps sometime before we actually start building, right? Building before we start developing and coding. That is expensive. So you can do usability testing We are going to do our usability testing with a real website. So we're going to test IKEA, we're going to test Loblaws and Netflix, we're going to test, we're going to test IKEA's, the real site. But for the big project though, you're going to be testing something that is not built yet. So with IKEA, we're testing IKEA's existing website. So we're testing something that is live. And then so that we can validate what we think is maybe broken or not broken. And I will say that testing is easier because there's a site that is live. But you could also be testing wireframes or a prototype that is clickable, but it's not available online. It's not a real website, but it's something that you've designed, but it's black and white. So that means a little bit more sophistication in your when you do the moderation. But you can also test a prototype so that you can actually find issues with your prototype so that you can adjust and make changes to your prototype, which we will do in the big project, so that you can design, and when you develop, you feel better, you feel more confident in the experience before you start developing. As early as possible means before you have something built so that it's not expensive to make changes. It's easy to make changes on the prototype or a piece of paper. It's a lot more harder to make changes when something is built. So let's say with IKEA, if we were to say to IKEA, here are all the issues and go and fix them, it's going to be a lot harder to fix than if we had a prototype that you created that you could go and make changes, and then you can, and then before the development is done, is a lot easier. So before building things, so the key is you want to do it as early as possible so that you don't have too many resources involved in building. It's easy to make changes to a prototype, to wireframes. I have done usability testing on paper as well. So it was very informal. It was more informal, but it was on paper. But it's so insightful. You'll be amazed to see how some little labels, tweaking some little labels can make a big difference even on the paper, so that that you prevent having to undo and when something is already built. Marisa is asking, how much can we trust the observation and insight from usability testing on low functionality prototype or from SMP? I would say you can highly trust. But again, it all depends on what you're trying to test at that point, at that moment. But you should feel very confident in any of the usability testing that you would do, as long as you're confident that you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So, but you will be amazed to see how much insight, how many insights, and how big some of the problems you may find on paper prototyping or low functionality prototyping. The insight that you will find, structural insights, label insights, how people understand. Very, very powerful. From regardless if it's an existing site, regardless if it's a low functionality site. And this is where the moderator skills are critical. Knowing what you're trying to get and what you need, and then really, really paying attention and observing. What happens with a low functionality prototype, because it's not functional, right? You're not going to have a lot of elements like error prevention, system error preventions, and you don't see the full behavior. But I will tell you, often with sites, it's not about necessarily the cute behaviors. It's not necessarily like how things are moving on screen and transitioning that are causing issues. Often there will be big issues that will be on your paper prototype. Like think of air miles, think of Metro, and think of what we found related to the heuristic that you would see on the paper or you would see on an existing site. So, and this is very important for you as UX designer, to be able to speak to the fact that a paper prototype or a wireframe prototype or a paper prototype is as effective than a real website if it's well done and if you know exactly what you're doing and why. So don't think that one is not, but they each have different purposes, but you will get as much insights if you do a good job in your moderation and you know what you're looking for and you're well prepared and use beta testing. You'll be amazed. It's pretty insightful. So a usability testing. When you think of doing a usability testing, you start. I will say, at a minimum, from the moment that you want to do test plan, what are we testing? Getting ready, doing your recruitment, facilitating your sessions, doing your analysis. You're talking to 4 to 6 weeks. You can do a usability testing in 4 to 6 weeks. That will include real participants, a real customer, and a real all of this from a data analysis. And then now you're talking $10,000 to $20,000, $10,000 to $15,000. It depends, right, how sophisticated you go from technology. I've already shared with you the wizard will reduce cost. But when it comes to a low functionality prototype testing or even paper wireframes, and let's say that you as a designer, you're sketching, you've started doing some sketches and you want to do some informal usability testing and you want to see like people that know little about the project to at least get a bit of insight about your design. Before you even do usability testing, you could do informal usability testing, okay? You could do this very quickly. In a matter of days, you can have a few people that you're actually showing wireframes and you say, tell me or go and then place a purchase using the wireframe. You show them the first wireframes. You show them a homepage and you say, great, you want to buy a new book. Tell me where you go. So at this point, they have to tell you, right? They say, well, I'll go here. Then you get great. Hopefully you've designed the next page. Then you show them the next page. You do that. You can do this in a week because you're not this process of informal can be very quick, short, to give you some insights before you do a bigger usability testing as well. So, but we're focusing here on, we're doing usability testing with real participant, real user in the lab, or we have stakeholder. It's 4 to 6 weeks process at a minimum that you can think of. Perhaps you can have shorter, but you're not going to have as many maybe scenarios or as many participants as well. We're going to talk about how many participants do we need. We have about 3 minutes left. So where, when? So I've already talked about locations. Lab, you can do usability testing remote. You can also do in a room with no mirrors. You can be very creative. What's more important is knowing why you're doing it and having a good facilitator. So you are going to have to continue reading for the presentation for the deck today on your own, but I don't think we have too many tasks left. And believe me, we're going to go in very, very details of all of the steps. We are 7 of them. User tasks will be very important, a very important critical step. And think a lot. Okay, so that was the last step. So this one is a good quick little example of you could have on a cheat sheet what you will do, and then for the usability testing, so that you could share with your clients if they wanted to have a summary review of what you would do. But the test task and will be very critical, and we're also going to tell you what to do and how do you make notes and the do's and don'ts when we are doing the user scenarios. But that will be a topic in itself too. As well. So that was the intro for this week. Next week, we're going to dive in. But please go through the lab, and because that's our first step of starting to prepare and think about where are we going to go. I will review the heuristic and I will give feedback from the heuristic assignment, but you can see that this is the beginning of our planning. And then we're going to be talking usability testing for until we even come back from a reading week. It's all going to be about testing, and then we'll do eye tracking, I think, week 9, but I may have to move that as well for maybe 1 week earlier. Any questions about usability testing at a high level as intro, because we're going to do a lot more diving. Anything new that you've heard or you've discovered tonight about usability testing that you may have not thought of, or that is jumping at you? Okay, we're on time. So you have 10 minutes break, and then you'll be with Yvonne at 3. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we will see you tomorrow for 5111.